let me thank all those who are here with us today for their support for Senator Murphy's and mine and several of our colleagues' legislation. And you probably know it by now as the Core Parental Refusal Act. But most importantly, let me thank them for their support for the education of all New Yorkers, and especially the future of our kids. The individuals represent the groups of the 19.5 million people we have in New York State, and they're going to illustrate to you why they have the most vested interest in the future of that educational system, and most importantly in our kids, because it's directly related to the positive impacts we can make on that educational system. Here with me today are educators, they're school board members, they're administrators, of course they're elected officials, and I'm proud to say elected officials from both sides of the aisle, from both the Senate and the Assembly, in support of this particular bill. And probably most importantly, and certainly last, and I saved them to last because they're not least, parents and some of our kids who are being impacted by what we see by the group here who is seriously informed about this Common Core and in many ways seriously engaged. And I think that's important because I don't think we've really had a voice, been fully engaged, had a part of the discussion from what I would say was a top-down, one-size-fits-all proposal from, I just have to classify those as bureaucrats from the federal government, which kind of swept into our state and into other states. And what we'd like to do with this bill and the support we have here is deal with one of the issues that are seriously impacting our educational system and our kids negatively, and that is the overutilization of standardized tests, which if you do any research and all the indicators, when you use a standardized test to the level that's being used now, it has a very profound negative impact on the effectiveness of our education, our teaching, and the kids' ability to learn. Now, what we're trying to do with this particular bill, because there are a whole bunch of parents who are home dealing with this Common Core situation who don't know what their rights are. And what we'd like to do with this bill is not only inform them, but get them engaged in the process. And I guess I can use this terminology because I've used it before. Help us starve the beast. Starve the beast so we can have a discussion, have a voice, go back to the drawing board, and move forward in a very positive way because there are some positive things that we can do to improve our educational system. Now, how can we do that with this bill? Well, what this bill says very simply, with total transparency, is that school districts in every school across the state of New York will be informing every parent that they have the right to have their children refuse to take any related Common Core test. But most importantly, because they kind of think they have the right, but they're not sure if they're going to be penalized or not. Because the reality is we're getting a lot of information sent out to parents from different schools and different school districts with information that is not the reality of what is actually the law right now. So we want to clarify that. And what the message is that you can not only refuse, but you can refuse without any penalty. Those who take the test would not be rewarded. You could not be forced to sit and stare in a classroom, which I think is a serious penalty, and you would be provided, you would have to be provided academic work while those others who choose to take the test take it. Secondarily, educators, teachers could not be penalized and would not be rewarded if their kids refused to take their test or if they took the test. And thirdly, because schools are concerned, what our bill says, schools and school systems could not be penalized. They would not lose school aid. They would not be sanctioned. They would not be put on a list of underperforming or failing schools if they went below the 95% percentile. In doing this, we think we can get parents to say, I really don't want my kids involved in this level of standardized testing, the utilization of tests to this level. Because here's what happens when that takes place. They've got control of the standards. They've got control of the tests. They've got control of the mandatory outcomes to show you're successful as a student. The only thing left is a curriculum. And when you control those two things on each end, you actually control the curriculum. You know what the curriculum has become. Teachers spend most of their time in prep, kids most of their time in prep, teaching kids to answer questions on standardized tests. And we are evaluating kids on how they do answering questions on standardized tests. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody in this room who cares about education of their kids would appreciate heightened standards, a heightened curriculum. We even like and think it's important to have some standardized tests. I took those Iowa tests. I'm sure I filled in a lot of bubbles. I don't know if I did it correctly or not, but I made it a pretty long way. And I think they worked pretty well, pretty effectively for me. We just don't want the overutilization of those particular tests. So if we can starve it a little bit, get it stopped to take a step back, and get the people in New York State to have some control over their own destiny in relationship to their children and their education, because we owe that to them as elected officials. I think we can do this in the right way, and that's the only thing we're asking for. Yesterday, I had a nice meeting in the morning with Assemblywoman Nolan, the chairwoman of our committee in the New York State Assembly. Very cordial. She was very understanding. She understood the bill. She said herself, it's gone too far. Her child would probably be opted out at this point, and I offered her to lead the bill, be the lead sponsor on the bill. If she had any changes she wanted to make, love to look at them. We could get all the sponsors on that. And she indicated to me they're going to have a majority bill. You know what? That's fantastic. We've done our job. If we have a bill, that does the job. I also had to indicate to her that Haley's Comet comes around in 2061, but the testing comes around in April, and we don't have much time. And I hope that resonated with her a little bit, and I hope we can get something like this in place so we can actually give a voice, get involved in the discussion with the most important component in this representative democracy, and that is our citizenry and our parents and our kids who have the most invested interest in what we do. Basically what we're saying, want to put some common sense in the Common Core.